All right, the second question that was brought up went directly to the passage of Scripture, and I really enjoy questions like these. Sister asked, the whole sermon was good, but I don't see how Nabal was employing David. So let's consider the text from this morning. Is there a way for us to tell that Nabal was employing David? Now, commentators seem to agree he was. Is there a way we can tell explicitly from the text? Of course, there's a connection there, and I pointed this out just very early in the passage. Nabal was harsh and evil in his dealings, and the implication there is what follows here is describing one of Nabal's dealings. So that's where I get that explicitly from the text. And then later in verse 21, we didn't get there. It says, "Now David had said, 'Surely in vain I have guarded all this man has in the wilderness,'" like he's expecting payment from it, right? "I have guarded all that this man has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belonged to him, and he has returned to me evil for good." He did not pay me what he owed me, right? I did this in vain. I was doing this for a payment, but it turned out I was doing this in vain. So from just those two verses, can we tell that Nabal was actually employing David, or is it too much of a stretch to say that he did?
It's definitely implied.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm okay distinguishing between that, right? We say that we do say that from inference because the text does not come out and say, yeah, Nabal was employing David. But every bending of the text seems to indicate that he was. Unless you guys see something that I don't. And if you do, please tell me, because I like to grow too and I like to learn. So, and I know I pour over the text for hours and hours and hours and hours, and commentaries for hours and hours and hours and hours. That doesn't mean I don't miss stuff. So.
That seems obvious that he was there for the fact. He was there for work.
Yeah. And where was the stronghold at? We can look at the map over here. Where was the stronghold David spent most of his time? Maybe I'm going the wrong way here. United Monarchy, that'd be in David's time. So that's En-Gedi. Does anyone know where En-Gedi was?
He used to.
Yep, I think it was right. It was here in Judea somewhere. This is where he's at. Here's Carmel, right here. So Carmel, we saw Carmel in today's story. Hebron was somewhere like right here. And so the distance from Hebron to Carmel about 8 miles, and I mentioned that today. Where was En-Gedi? En-Gedi's like over here next to the sea, right? So David spent most of his time in En-Gedi, and all of a sudden he's like up here in Carmel guarding some sheep. Like, he's not just going to be doing that because that's not where he currently lives. It's not where his stronghold is. There's a purpose he's there, right? So just all the details in the text, even David being away from his own home, in a field where he is the defense. It's not a stronghold. He is the defense. Just every bending of the text seems to me, and commentators seem to agree on it, that, yeah, David is employed by Nabal.
But, okay, now...
Yeah, please.
And I was reading my commentary and it said the same thing. Did he speak to Nabal at some point that he was in?
Not, but we don't see it before this. It doesn't mean he didn't. We just don't see it in the text before this. That's why I'm saying there is some inferring going on here to get at the text. Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes in a biblical text we do have to infer in order to get the context, in order to see what's going on. There's no getting around that because the text itself doesn't supply every single detail of the story, right? Like it never even records David traveling to Carmel. It never records that. It's just all of a sudden, boop, oh, David's in Carmel. It almost seems like, and some commentators will insist this about 1 Samuel. It almost seems like somebody took a different story and just supplanted it right there in the middle.
Yeah.
And some academics go that way because 1 Samuel has some of the least persuasive manuscript evidence concerning its contents. I believe God preserved it, right? But when we look back at the manuscript evidence for 1 Samuel, it's some of the most difficult for translators in all of the Bible.
Why?
Because so much of it is missing, or there are weird words. So many variations in the manuscripts. So it's one of the most difficult to translate for translators, and it's one of the most difficult to have compiled because the manuscript tradition isn't as full as we would like. When I say we, I mean those scholars who do the textual criticism and translating. So 1 Samuel really is one of the most difficult, and the text doesn't supply all the details here. Of course, I think this story belongs right here where it is in 1 Samuel, that God has it there for a purpose and that he has preserved his word.